If you're watching this video, you're probably a non-U.S. resident interested in accessing the U.S. credit market. And I'm here to tell you this is very possible when you have the right strategy in place. My name is Tyler Da Costa, and I've personally accessed over $160,000 in personal and business credit as a non-U.S. resident from Canada. In the U.S., banks tend to give out larger credit limits. And I don't mean they're just handing them out to anyone with a pulse. You have to have a properly structured personal credit profile, okay? Now, just as an example, I had an American Express card in Canada. I'm a Canadian citizen by birth. That had a $2,200 credit limit. Now, when I transferred my credit over to the US, the first card that American Express gave me was $8,000, so almost a 4x increase in available credit. And, once I kind of got a taste of this, I started learning about how to build up your personal credit profile so that you can look attractive to banks and they'll lend you large amounts of money, give you access to 0% interest business credit, earn travel rewards so you can travel for free, business, first class flights for free, stay in luxury hotel stays. The list is endless, okay? There are so many benefits in that US credit system. And that ultimately led me down to the path where I was starting to get approved for cards like this, okay? So I got an American Express Gold card, approved to spend $40,000. That was a personal card. I also had a Platinum card that I actually got within 3 weeks of the Gold card, and was approved to spend $40,000 on that as well. I also have another American Express card here for $20,000, a Chase Sapphire Preferred, $26,500, which is really good for Chase, especially as a non-resident with an ITIN, and another Amex business card where I got $23,400 at 0% interest. Now, these are just a few of my highlights. I do have more cards than this, but I just want to kind of flex on you a little bit just to show you what's possible. As you're building credit in the US and you're being approved for more cards, you are going to receive massive sign-up bonuses. And I mean, these are the biggest sign-up bonuses in the world. All right, I've never seen anything like this in Canada. And just to give you an idea of what we're talking about here, these sign-up bonuses are basically bonuses that you're going to receive in the form of rewards, points, miles from your particular bank when you hit a minimum spend requirement. Okay, so if you open a new card, they're going to say, hey, we need you to spend $6,000 in the first 6 months. When you do, we are going to issue you a large amount of points that you can use for free travel. So I just received an offer from American Express the other day, actually. This is a business platinum card with an offer for 250,000 rewards points. If you play your cards right and you learn the travel hacking game, you understand how to move your points around and exponentially increase the value by 2 to 10x, you could get almost $20,000 in free travel out of this. So that is absolutely insane when you compare that to the annual fee. This is another personal card I got from American Express, the platinum card. We're actually earned this already, 150,000 Amex rewards. I won't get into it now. I'll show you later on in the slide, but I've actually used this to get some business class flight experiences with my wife, and it was pretty spectacular. When you're stacking up all these sign-up bonuses and you're earning rewards, this is inevitably leading you to free travel. And I'm talking business, first class flights, 5-star luxury hotel stays, car rentals, all that stuff, right? So just to give you a little bit of an example, these are 3 little case studies from my own personal experiences where I'd gotten over $3,800 in luxury travel for $158. Okay, I only paid $158. This is a little flight I took here, business class flight from Helsinki to London. I only paid $33 for this, and the cash cost of this flight was actually $1,250. Okay, some Chase points, 17,000 points. Stayed in a 5-star luxury hotel here in Hungary, Budapest. Same thing, paid 17,000 points per night. I think we stayed there 2 nights. And we actually paid $0, no taxes and fees or anything. And then we took another business class flight from Stockholm to Bangkok. We only paid $125 each and 80,000 Amex rewards. And these were $2,100 flights. So, my wife and I, it was $4,200 if we were to pay cash, but we only paid $250. So super crazy. A lot of opportunity here, especially in the travel reward space, to get luxury experiences and travel for free. And of course, you'll get a copy of my ebook here, Your Secret Guide to Free Vacation, 4 Simple Steps, Sneak Peek into Travel Rewards Mastery 2.0. Super valuable book where I kind of give out a lot of tips and tricks and strategies, teach you how to use apps and websites to earn the most rewards possible, and strategies to exponentially increase the value of your points. Because what a lot of people do with their points is they'll earn points on their credit card with their regular spending patterns, or they'll get sign-up bonuses, and then they'll turn around and use those points on their bank's website to book free travel. But the problem with this is when you do this, you are going to be paying almost double the amount of points that you'd be using if you would learn our travel hacking strategies, okay? So, one of those flights that we took up here, this 80,000, so we paid $160,000 between the 2 of us. Now, I looked up those same flights on the Amex portal, and it was actually 360,000 points if we were to book through them. But when we got into the art of transferring our points around, okay, transferring to airline accounts, hotel accounts, we got this deal here, and we actually only paid $160,000. So easy way to double the amount of points, or at least not get charged double. If you're an entrepreneur, like, one of the biggest benefits here is getting access to 0% interest business credit. Okay, I've consulted with countless entrepreneurs from around the world who want to jump into the US credit system and they want to get business credit right away. But what they don't realize, and what a lot of people don't realize, is that when you apply for business credit, these banks are going to check your personal credit profile. So that is why we spend time building up this profile strategically. That way we can make ourselves look attractive to these banks. And when we apply for business credit, we get 0% interest business credit, then they can look at our credit profile on the personal side and say, hey, we can see that this person's been able to financially manage responsibly, high limits on the personal side. They've been responsible with their credit cards, they're paying their bills on time, they've got some age on their credit profile. Then they're willing to issue 0% interest business credit. And I mean, on the personal side, you can also get 0% interest business cards. But the reason why I don't suggest to use these for any sort of investments is because, especially when you're in the building phase, we want to keep our utilization low. And anytime you're making an investment, most times you're probably waiting for that return on that investment where your card may be maxed out, or at least maybe 80-90%. And that's going to give your credit score a little bit of a hit, okay? Because 30% of your credit score is based on your credit utilization. So that's just how much of your available credit are you currently using. You can still use this, but like I said, I highly suggest against it until you get to that business credit phase. Now, one of the best banks in the US to bank with and to use their travel reward system and get 0% interest business credit is Chase. They're one of the biggest banks in the United States. They have this synonymous rule that if you have 5 credit cards in the last 2 years, the last 24 months, then you won't be eligible for another card with them until your first card ages past 24 months. So we call this the Chase 524 status. And every time you get a personal credit card with any bank, it counts toward this 524 status. Now, on the business side, things are a little bit different. These cards, you have a lot of 0% interest options over there. And the reason why these are so special on the business side is because your credit utilization on the business side, so that's how much credit you're using of your available credit limits, doesn't count on your personal credit score. So if you have a 750 credit score on the personal side and you've got 2 cards over on the business side maxed out because you've liquidated them, taken the cash off them, used them for a business investment, a real estate investment, that 750 credit score isn't going to change. That's the one thing that absolutely makes it look so attractive to entrepreneurs all around the world. And like we mentioned with the Chase 524 rule, business credit cards do not count toward that 524 status. So let's say you're at your 524 status and now you're locked out of the Chase ecosystem and you want to wait until, say, 6 months when your first card ages past 24 months. Well, you can just actually apply for business cards while you're locked out of that ecosystem and it won't count toward your 524 status. So what do banks look for when you are applying for business credit? They want to see that you have a personal credit profile at least 1 to 2 years old, okay? They're not willing to issue these business credit limits without seeing that you have some sort of an age on your personal credit profile and you've been able to demonstrate financial responsibility on that personal side. They want to see that you have multiple high limit accounts because banks work on what we call comparable credit. So if someone walks into a Chase bank and they want to open up a business account and get a business credit card and they only have, a $1,500 limit on a personal card, another card with $800 on it, but they're going into the business side and they're requesting they want to get 20 grand. Well, they're not going to get it because these banks want to see that you've been able to manage high limits on the personal side before you get the business side. So that's why we spend time on the US Credit Accelerator building up that personal profile. Okay, we want to get a diversity of accounts. We want to age your accounts and we want to apply strategically to accounts or cards that give you minimum high credit limits. Another thing banks pride themselves on is having relationships with their customers. By relationships, I don't mean, taking your business manager out for dinner. This just means opening up accounts with them. Anytime you apply for credit with a bank, you want to open a checkings or savings account with them first. Deposit a little bit of money. That way, when you go to apply, they can see, okay, well, this person has built a relationship with us. They've been depositing money into these accounts. We can trust them with some credit. And low-risk LLCs. When you're starting an LLC in the United States and you're going out there to try and apply for business credit, you want to have an LLC set up so that it does not look like a risky business. I'm talking trucking, I'm talking real estate, anything to do with credit and finances. Banks look at this as a higher risk opportunity. You want to look at things like consulting or e-commerce. These are types of businesses that banks are more willing to lend out larger amounts to. And the last thing is proper business setup, and this is just having a business that has the right credentials from the get-go. And I mean having a business email address, having a business website, having a business address, not your home address. You want to have a business phone number. These are things that banks are going to look at when you go to open accounts with them, okay? So if you have a Gmail account, a personal Gmail account or a Hotmail account, or you have a home address, well, this doesn't look very professional. So every time they see one of those boxes checked off, they're going to ding off a few $1,000s off of what they originally would have approved you for. Now, the 4 biggest mistakes I see non-residents make, and I know this because I've consulted with entrepreneurs all around the world, individuals who want to access the U.S. credit market. Number 1 is using a virtual address to try and open up bank accounts. Now, this used to be a thing of the past, years back, where using a virtual address was quite common, but U.S. banks are becoming hip to this, and they have ways to see if you're using a virtual address over a residential address. If you were to be approved with a virtual address, your address would have to check off 2 boxes. Number 1, is it a commercial mail receiving agency? You can check this on UPS just by looking up your address, and it's going to tell you whether or not it is a commercial mail receiving agency or not. Now, if it does pass that test, the second thing you want to check is, what is the RDI index of this address? And that's just simply a index that determines whether or not your address is in a commercial zone or a residential zone. If you pass those 2 tests, you may be able to use it, but I always suggest using a residential address. It's just going to be a whole lot easier. It's going to be legit, and it's going to be easier to verify your address through a residential lease and a utility bill. Number 2 is applying for credit cards with banks that don't accept ITIN, okay? Having an ITIN in the United States is a privilege, but not all banks are going to recognize that. So there are very good national banks and credit unions in the United States that accept ITINs, but you don't want to go applying to ones that require a social security number. So the 4 biggest banks that accept ITINs in the US: Chase, Capital One, Citi, Bank of America. American Express is a really good one too. And the third one is applying for cards that don't build credit. Now, I see this all the time as people usually come into the credit building program with a goal in mind. They either want one particular card or a stack of cards that have certain benefits, but it just doesn't work that way. You have to first build up your personal credit profile. You have to start at the bottom and gradually work your way up, get higher credit limits, boost up your score, add variety to your accounts, and then you can start being approved for the cards that you really want, the premium travel reward credit cards. As an example, you have credit cards and you have charge cards. Credit cards are the cards that you get with a set spending limit. You can have access to that credit limit all the time, as long as you're paying your bills off. And then you have the charge cards. And these are basically cards that, like the American Express Platinum and the Gold, where there's no preset spending limit. But the problem with these cards is, first of all, amazing rewards. You can get a lot of great travel experiences and points using these cards. But because they don't have a credit limit, they don't contribute to your overall credit limit. And that should be your number 1 goal when you're building up your personal profile to qualify for business credit, is to get those personal limits as high as possible. And that ties in with number 4, is applying for premium cards too early. If you're applying for cards that you are not eligible for yet, you're going to get denied. And in most cases, you're going to get a hard inquiry on your account. It's important to understand the credit card tiers. Okay, there's a list of credit cards in certain tiers that have certain eligibility requirements, as well as minimum credit limits that they issue. And when you know that, you can apply strategically and you can be approved successfully. Now, you look at banks like Chase, these guys usually like to see that you have a minimum of 6 months of a personal credit profile before you apply for any of their cards. So these are the things you want to keep in mind, is just all the bank application rules, what these banks look for when you're applying, and what the requirements are. Now, the biggest barrier to entry into the U.S. credit market as a non-resident, and I see this all the time, is getting a real personal bank account without traveling. Now, U.S. banks require you to open up accounts in person. If you don't have a social security number or you're not an American citizen, they're going to want you to come in. It is possible to do this, but I see a lot of people that aren't willing to travel, or they don't want to spend the extra money to go there and put in the time to open up these accounts. But in our program, in the U.S. Credit Accelerator, we show you how to open up a bank account online, okay? This is a rare thing. This is something that you are not going to see anywhere else. And 2 is lack of knowledge on how the U.S. credit system works. There are complexities and nuances that you need to understand. And that's what we do, is we give you guidance on how to navigate the U.S. credit system. And the third one is understanding bank application rules. And we already kind of touched on this. Every bank has a different set of rules on how many cards you can apply for, how many cards you can apply for at one time, how many cards you can get, what their credit limit ceiling is. So, maybe a bank is only going to issue you $150,000 in total credit limits across personal and business before they start requesting documentation. These are the things that you want to know when you're crafting a credit building strategy. And banks pull from different credit bureaus. So in the US, you have Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. These are all the guys that make up your credit score based on the financial activity that your bank reports to them. When you go to apply for a credit card, each bank is going to check a different bureau. So some banks might check all 3 credit bureaus. Some banks might check your TransUnion. Some banks might check Equifax and TransUnion. You want to know these things before you're applying for cards so that you're not inquiring too many hard inquiries on your credit profile. And in saying that, you want to know how your profile is calculated, or your credit score, okay? Heaviest weighted factor is your payment history. And this just means, Are you making on-time payments, or how often are you making on-time payments? This is the number one thing that you do not want to flub up, okay? That's 35% of your credit score. And I mean, if you start missing payments, you're going to have a hard time getting credit in the US. Second thing is credit utilization. That's 30% of your credit score. We mentioned that earlier. That's just basically how much of your current credit limits are you currently using. So, 30% should be your kind of baseline. Once you go over 30%, your score starts taking a hit. We try to keep that in the optimal range between 1% and 4%. Third thing, credit age. How long have you had credit? Banks don't want to issue credit to people who don't have credit history. That's 15% of your credit score. Fourth thing is credit mix, 10%. It just means, do you have different types of credit, okay? Do you have credit cards? Do you have credit cards, mortgages, auto loans? Do you have installments in credit cards? You want to have a various type of credit accounts to help boost your credit score. I know 10% is not a huge amount, but when you are starting out and you're starting from zero, you want to be able to boost each and every one of these categories to give you an overall better score. Okay, so number 5, new inquiries at 10%. How many credit cards have you applied for recently? Okay, usually they look at the last 6 months. You don't want to go hog wild and just apply for every card that you see. You want to do it strategically, okay? Pick the cards that you want, the goals that you want to attain, and implement that into your credit building strategy. So these are all things that we go over in the US Credit Accelerator, all right? You can learn from someone who successfully navigated this system. If you decide to work with us, this is basically what your successful credit journey is going to look like. Right away, get on an onboarding call. We're going to take some information from you, apply for your ITIN. Okay, we partner with a professional ITIN tax service. And from there, we will get on a call and we will jump on a custom credit building strategy session. This is where we take down all your goals and we craft a strategy that's going to help you get to those goals in the most efficient and timely manner possible. Then we're going to verify your US address through a utility bill and a lease agreement. These are all templates and services that are in the course and in the program. Ultimately, we're going to use this to open up a personal bank account remotely. So like I said, if you can get to the US, opening up banks with accounts that you plan to get in the future will be a major plus in your credit building journey. But if you can't, we can help you get a personal bank account in the US without ever traveling there. All right. And the next step is to do a global transfer hack. We transfer your credit profile from your home country into the US to get that first US credit card. And then we want to open up a few different kinds of accounts. Okay. We want to get 3 accounts in your name to help you boost up your credit profile and lay the foundation so that we can start getting into more expert credit building strategies later on in the program. That's just expanding your credit accounts, raising your credit limits, knowing how to get cards that have minimum or high minimum credit limits, and just knowing what to put on those on those applications. So that's the overall goal. We want to get you to around $50,000 in personal credit lines in the first 12 months. That way you can qualify for business credit and you can have some sort of comparable credit to show these banks so that they can look at your profile and say, here's more. So I won't go over too much more detail. I just want to give you a general overview. If you're ready to transform your financial future and you want to get started with us, you want to learn from someone who's mastered this system, click the link below, apply and book a call, and we'll help you going forward.